two 6'11" or taller players both had 50 last night. Your opinion on how many threes Victor Wembanyama is taking and of late making? The Washington, D.C. Dulles Airport Marriott. Okay, all right. I think we can resume here just in a second. All right, let's do a podcast.
All right, let's go.
I welcome on to a very special Hollinger and Duncan. I have left the one true time zone. I don't know how you East Coasters do it. Trying to be an NBA journalist on this half of the country, it seems completely impossible. I got in last night. I caught up on all the action. I watched all the games. I went to bed, and now I'm awake and recording, but I'm not really awake. I guess also I don't really need sleep either, or you don't really need sleep, so that's something that really helps you.
This is such an amazing role reversal with you being the one on the road for this edition.
Yeah, I mean that was when you joined the Grizz, you still were on the road a lot, right? But even before
I was on the road more when I was with the Grizzlies than I was when I doing the media side. Yeah, it was insane.
Oh yeah, no, but I'm saying when you first joined the Grizzlies in like 2012, how much of just was like a lifestyle and sleep adjustment for you?
Yeah, it was because the travel with the team is weird because you'll get into hotels at like 3 a.m. and stuff. In some respects, it was different because I didn't have to write stuff after a game. Like the game would end, and I would just be like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll just go home now." So that part was different. There wasn't any of that like kind of media stuff. But in other respects, it was an adjustment on dealing with the different travel requirements, and then being on Central Time, which is its own kind of mind mess with thing. So it was an adjustment on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the hardest thing for me if I ever worked for a team, would just be the whole sleep travel thing. Obviously, being away from my family as well would be pretty tough. So I'm going to try to get into rhythm here. Usually once we actually start talking, I'll be okay, even if I am totally sleep deprived. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 4 minutes for each of these teams. We did the Western Conference a couple of weeks ago. Now we're going to do the East and just go through some of our early initial impressions on these teams. You specifically requested, John, the Atlanta Hawks. I also did their game on Tuesday, so it's going to be a hockey show. Let's start it.
All right. On the Atlanta Hawks, I think the two disparate things that you have to talk about with the Atlanta Hawks is, one, the Dyson Daniels phenomenon, where he is leading the league in steals and deflections by a mile. Just been a terror on the defensive end, giving them enough offensively that he can stay on the court, shooting 56% on twos, actually, which has been nice. And here's the thing, though. They're still 26 in defense. Like, all this is happening, and yet it doesn't matter. They're still the Hawks. Like, how is this possible? So that's been a frustration to go along with that. I think injuries, bad second unit minutes have definitely been a big part of that. But the struggle for this team to become even average on defense is pretty real. I mean, when you add this dynamic defender and it still just isn't moving the needle on the results, you got to wonder about other things there.
Well, it did move the needle on Tuesday against Atlanta when they pulled the biggest upset in NBA Cup history, John.
Yes.
And actually, perhaps more salient, the sixth biggest upset in NBA history dating back to 1995 as 16.5-point underdogs without Trae Young.
Wow.
So their defense was great in that game. I mean, I thought it was one of my favorite games of basketball that I've seen in a long time. Without Trae, they just had incredible interior passing. It was one of those games where they had a ton of assists, but it wasn't because they were setting up threes. It was just like great interior passing right at the basket over and over again against that switching Boston defense. It looked really good, at least in that one. Jalen Johnson had one of the best passing games that I've seen from him. Had his second triple-double of his career in that one. But yeah, I mean, Daniels, to me, the defense has been much more impressive than I thought it would be. I mean, particularly from a playmaking standpoint, and we'll see if he's able to keep this up. Obviously, he won't keep up this crazy Alvin Robertson-esque level all season, but good bet to lead the league in steals. But yeah, I mean, I how much of it is Trae to you? How much is just rookies and no wings? Do you think if they could ever get their whole group together, they might actually have something?
I think there's more of a case for that now. I mean, the bench units have been bad, so that's definitely been a factor. If they get Bogdanovich back, if they get even like Vit Krejci back, DeAndre Hunter's only played 2 games.
Well, they don't have a backup point guard either, though. I guess they moved Daniels into that role, and he might be qualified. That's actually probably his best offensive position. I don't know if it's the offense's best offensive position.
What's amazing is how reluctant they were to do that, because in the beginning of the year, even with Kobe Buffkin hurt, they were saying it was going to be Bogdanovich and Krejci who were going to be running that second unit. And I think it's just evolved more to where it's like, guys, like this is the guy who can dribble. It kind of has to be him. They've had two ways.
Well, more because he can't do anything off the ball. Yeah, he can't do anything off the ball. That's the other problem with Daniels. Like his 3-point shooting, that's the one thing that hasn't taken a step forward.
Yeah, although he's at least taken them. I mean, which has been half the battle with him a lot of the time. But yeah, 26%. Like he has to improve on that.
But yeah, hey, I mean, David Roddy has 70% true shooting.
Woo, let's go. Yeah. Larry Nance hitting 73% from 3. Let's see if that keeps up.
Yeah.
He's actually an interesting guy because he's been getting some run now, and he's probably their best trade candidate as the year goes on, because I don't know how well he really fits playing the 4 next to Okongwu or Capella, and you would think other teams would have an interest in him as the year goes on. In Indiana and Oklahoma City where they could use another big.
Well, and they got to clear out some room for Dom Barlow to play, John.
Hey, Dom Barlow was good in the G League opener, so let's see what
Did you go to that?
No.
Okay, good. But yeah, all right, that's probably enough of them. I mean, Zachary Reese-Shea having some rookie struggles. His jumper did not look very good on Tuesday. He's when putting him out there to start, like he's going to be firing away. Like Daniels, for all his brilliance on Tuesday, he just creeped over 50% true shooting himself. Trae Young not having that renaissance season, like he looked worn down before he succumbed to that Achilles tendonitis as well. Even Jalen Johnson, like I think I was very seduced by the way they played on Tuesday, but overall, I mean, if they could truly get Hunter and Bogdanovich and Krejci back, like you could maybe squint and find a way that they could have 8 or 9 NBA players, but also these are guys who have pretty ample injury histories. Okay, yeah. My first team. Let's put another 4 minutes on the clock. We went over on the Atlanta Hawks, but that's okay. They are the Southeast team at the moment. My first team is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They are 13-0. John, are the Cleveland Cavaliers truly a championship contender?
The only thing we don't know is we don't know how much we can trust them in May, right? As far as regular season, these guys are going to win a bunch of games. I I was on board with Cleveland coming into the year. I had them finishing with the third best record in the league. I just thought there was a lot of talent here, and that kind of got lost because so much of it was injured a year ago. So the only real question you have here is now when you get into a playoff series, second round conference finals, do they have enough high end, like truly high end guys to really scare a Boston or to win a final series against whoever comes out of the West? I think you still probably question that about them, but the fact that we're even asking this, I think, is a tremendous statement about the whole Cleveland project right now.
So the thing, I think the defense being sixth, that's actually something that they could play at that level, and maybe even more so in the playoffs when they can get more of Allen and Mobley on the floor. Are you buying this team's number 2 offense because they are number 1 in the NBA by a mile in field goal percentage? They are 2.4 percentage points better than Boston, who themselves are 1.2 percentage points better than New York. So Cleveland is almost 4 percentage points at field goal ahead of New York. They also are turning it over at the 5th best rate, but then they are 29th in offensive rebounds, which I don't think will really get much better, and 29th in getting to the foul line, which maybe could be a little bit better, but not much. Mm-hmm. So this scorching hot shooting is what they are relying on offensively right now.
Yeah, and they have the ability to do that, but not at this level. I mean, come on. I mean, no. Like Karis LeVert and Ty Jerome are playing out of their damn minds. They've had some other kind of outlier-ish performances too. Those guys are going to come back to earth. So it's going to get harder for them because they're not creating, as you point out with the offensive rebounds, the free throws, they're not creating a lot of easy for themselves if the shot making can't carry them. So that's
well yeah. Let me give you some stats on that. So their location field goal percentage is 4th, so pretty good. They are sixth most shots at the rim, 11th most threes, but just the percentage that they're shooting from downtown is absolutely out of this world, 41.3%. John, would you care to guess the other NBA team that is shooting over 40% from 3 right now?
So I'm guessing it's not the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, Orlando is 29.9%, so they're actually the lowest. The Hawks are actually mid-pack, 36.5%.
Okay, so I'm going to say Golden State.
That's a good guess. The Golden State Warriors are 6th. The Denver Nuggets. Wow. The Denver Nuggets, who can't shoot at all. They're just one of the worst shooting teams ever. Now, they don't take a lot of them. They are first, tied with Cleveland at 41.3%. Now, Donovan Mitchell also, he had a really hot start last year shooting the ball from outside. That waned as the season went on, and he kind of wore down. But I think the bigger question to me is going to be the Cleveland offense, and what does that look like going up against a team that has good perimeter defense, but also great rim protection. If they're going up against the Celtics, can Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland break the Celtics, force them to put 2 on the ball, force them, if Kristaps Porzingis is healthy, to get him out on the floor, not play him as much, because I think that, and then, can Evan Mobley continue to be this effective as a finisher around the basket? Like that's a question that I have, but I don't know. I mean, I think it seems right now, unless something major happens, like they should have kind of a waltz to the conference finals. Like, I mean, maybe Milwaukee and Philly can get it together. We'll talk about them in a bit here. Your next team is?
Let's talk about Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you got on them?
Let's go.
Well, but here's the thing, though, that's so weird about them. Like, LaMelo Ball statistically is he's got like 35 points and 6 threes every game, yet their offense is bad. Mm-hmm. And like they've had just so many like complete non-competes. Like that game against Orlando without Paolo to lose by 25. I mean, that was just atrocious.
Yeah, and yet they've been able to muster an average defense without any centers.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
They're playing
because they don't really have any good defensive players other than Cody Martin. Like, who is a good defensive player on this team?
Well, they're playing. I mean, Josh Green has been playing a lot, who's okay, I guess, but he can't score at all. He has, I think I have this right, he has 4 points in his last 96 minutes over the last 4 games.
Is that really true?
Wow. Yeah, it's just, he's just like, he just shoots these, line drive threes with his elbow out, and he's like not really looking at the basket.
Yeah,
otherwise.
he also jumps to the side. He and Mo Bamba, like the long jump is obviously one of the great events in Olympic history. He and Mo Bamba should have a side jump while shooting the ball to see like who can go further, jumping to the side while shooting their jump shot.
That's a good one. Jarris Walker might want in on that too, although he's starting to correct that. Just a weird team to get a beat on right now. They were trying to play Tijan Salah. He's, I would say, not very good right now. So that's been an interesting back and forth. He DNP'd the first couple games, and then they had some injuries. They've thrown him in there. Brandon Miller has just been okay. He had the game winner against Detroit, but kind of not really super efficient and like not even that high volume. Like they're running a lot of stuff through Trey Mann when LaMelo wasn't out there, which is like okay, I guess. But they just haven't really had a second guy to go with LaMelo offensively, and you would have thought Miller might be able to do that, and he kind of hasn't so far.
Yeah, I mean LaMelo is taking 13.1 threes per game.
Yeah.
And averaging 30 points, and even his 2-point shooting is like pretty respectable now, 54%. Like he's struggled from there. Weirdly, only 6.3 assists though, which is a little bit of a concern for me for a guy who has 37.5 usage. Actually, I'll look while you respond to that at what we have for him with Seth's stats, because maybe his teammates are just missing every one of the shots that he's setting up.
That was going to be my first question.
Yeah, but like LaMelo seems like he's this weird thing for me, because all of the things that he's doing, pushing it in transition, like bombing a ton of threes from everywhere, like those are the things that I think correlates to like great offense for a team, and yet they're not really that good. So like he's kind of this conundrum of he finds a way to like not really be that effective, even though like he's doing in theory all the things that would make him effective. I mean, I'm trying to see if there's some crazy splits. I will say that let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's like, they're a 110 offensive rating when he's on the floor. Now they're 97 when he's off the floor, but that's still not like a crazy high number for when he's on the floor. And they also get 11 points better defensively when he goes out too.
Yikes.
Yeah, so it's just like, it seems like this is just like a carnival like stat padding season, which is great to see. Like it's way better than he's been before, but you're just like what does it all mean in the grand scheme of things?
For generally just watching Charlotte basketball for the last decade or two, I think you asked a very important existential question.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on here to, let me get the actual right window in front of me so I can see what teams I have. Here's a question I have about Boston, a team that it's hard to really have a ton of takes on at this point. I think they're doing, despite the loss to Atlanta, they're doing pretty much what would be hoped for. What do you think of Peyton Pritchard? Like, I think they're going to hold on to him. Obviously, he's playing a great role there, but like, would he be good enough to be like a starter somewhere else?
I think that's a fair question. Offensively, he's able to generate a lot of shots, a lot of threes, and I don't think it's just like a system trick either. Because they'll put him out there with some bad players now, especially with the injuries Boston has had, and he's still really productive. So
yeah, 11.4 3-point attempts per 36, hitting 43%, and he'll take them off the dribble. I think Joe Mazzulla's system and their player development has really just empowered so many guys. Derek White is like Klay Thompson now, all of a sudden, which is pretty incredible. But he's just a huge part of what they're doing. And then defensively, he's pretty tenacious as well. Now, is he going to run pick and roll and like dime guys up every time? I wouldn't say that, but as a guy who could, let's say he were traded to Minnesota and he's going to play next to Anthony Edwards, right? Like he could certainly start in a role like that, couldn't he?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
Or like the Clippers playing next to James Harden, like that's because I would say among point guards he's like probably average-ish on defense. Like he'll switch, he'll fight. He's not that long or that quick, but that's true of a lot of point guards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean teams will go after him in certain scenarios just like they would any other point guard, but he doesn't strike me as overly vulnerable, let's say.
Yeah, and at 37, he's got a lot of room to grow still in his game. Do you know that he's basically the same age as Jaylen Brown?
Well, all those years at the Hoop Summit aged him.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, because he was playing for the Portland Generals when he was like a sophomore in high school. But hey, score one for the people who are like, oh, he's just on the Hoop Summit team because he's a local kid. Like, nah, actually, he turned out way better than a lot of the other guys his year.
I mean, he was good even in those practices, so that's like not a big shock to me. I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, the Celtics have four players taking 9.8 3-point attempts per 36 or more. White at 9.8, Tatum at 11, Pritchard, and then Sam Hauser's had a somewhat slow start to the year, although he had a nice game against Brooklyn the other day. I mean, what do you think of Tatum taking 11 threes per 36? I mean, he started off so good in that game against New York. Is that what we want him doing, or is that like, because I don't know. I don't know if that's how well that's going to work through. I mean, I think that's probably the way for him to be efficient. Yeah,
I mean, he's still drawing fouls. I still feel like he gets to the rim, but I think he's just replaced pull-up twos with pull-up threes, basically, which, okay, we should be fine with that trade, right? I think just now when he sizes up guys in the perimeter, he's thinking pull-up three or go to the basket, but he's not thinking as much about taking two dribbles and trying to pull up from 17, which I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's having his most efficient season with 63% true shooting and also taking a ton of shots, 32 usage. So, I mean, like 38% for three on this type of volume, I do want to see whether that sustains. Sure, there's a lot of talk that he reworked his jump shot. Hey, did you know he trains with Drew Hanlon, by the way? You ever heard that?
I don't know. Somebody should post like a video or something.
Yeah. I can't believe they got Drew for the Netflix documentary, too. I can't believe he was available for a media appearance. Okay, let's move on to our next team here, which is...
it's the Milwaukee Bucks, who
wait, are they a team? Isn't it just Giannis
it's
at
just
this
one
point?
guy, right?
Giannis and Brook Lopez. Those are the only guys who
leading the
play
league
for
in
them.
scoring after hanging 59, was it, on the Pistons in a must-win game against Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, these last two games by him have been absolutely Herculean efforts to beat Toronto and Detroit at home on a back-to-back with that Damian Lillard.
I mean, we talked about this a little before, but the rest of this team just isn't good. They've gotten a little bit of a lift now from putting AJ Green in the rotation, I think, getting a little more shooting. But
can I give you a hot take?
Okay.
I actually think that they're gonna be like somewhat okay
once Middleton comes back.
Yeah, well, and Dame as well. I mean, Middleton, I'm not counting on him for like so much.
Yeah.
But, a team like this, like, for example, DeLon Wright, who they've gotten zero from. Like, he finally had to get back in the rotation because Ryan Rollins had shoulder instability. Just simply not playing Gary Trent, who I think in his defense was probably dealing with these back issues for a while. Like, letting him get healthy, I think will really help. But like, just simply taking the guys out who were just like not playing it even close to an NBA level. I think that's helped them some. Pat Connaughton sadly looks like he's completely done. Like, if they just could get one more Pat Connaughton type of guy, I think okay. When I say okay, I don't know that they were championship expectations this year. I can't go that far unless they really perform some surgery on the roster. But like, as far as just like improving, being an okay, playing at like, a 6th or 5th seed type of level the rest of the year, I think they'll actually be okay. Unless, of course, Giannis just completely wears down and can't play. Like, that's the other issue that I fear.
Yeah, I mean, when you have 4 guys giving you sub-replacement level minutes, the nice thing is that if you replace them with guys who are even just mediocre, your team improves, right?
Yeah.
So if they can replace those Trent, Connaughton, Wright, Jackson minutes with, just Taurean Prince level impact, right? Then it raises their floor at least.
Well, Brook Lopez is shooting 30% from 3. Trent, 27. Bobby Portis, much as I'm not a Bobby Portis fan, I think he could do better than 24% from downtown.
He's low-key bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so, but like, I think like these guys being 21st in offense, like that's not going to continue. I think they're going to have a good offense. And if they do that, I think they'll be a totally respectable group. Like, I don't think there's anything to the idea that they are just like going to be a bad offense this year. Like, that's just not going to continue. As long as Dame gets back and they get even like 25 minutes a game from Middleton for 50 games, like they'll be a good offense.
Yeah, but this looks more like a team that's going to limp in, maybe even has to go through the play-in. Not the powerhouse we thought they might be.
Okay, let's see here. Who's up next for my pick? The Miami Heat. Can you remember a coach ever making a worse mistake than what Eric Spoelstra did on Tuesday?
Is that unbelievable? And, I mean, it wasn't just the timeout. Like, he screwed up everything, right?
Like at the beginning, like the subs, like guys didn't know who they had, like what coverage they were in. They put Kel'el Ware in to guard the inbounder, and then Terry Rozier thought he was in the game, and he took Kel'el Ware out of the game, and then he was the guy who didn't help on the back screen or know whether they're switching or what. So it was just, not good.
And then obviously he uses the timeout, and then he tries to check Kevin Love in because he doesn't realize he lost possession on the timeout. So just a total disaster.
No, he put Kevin Love in to try to deny the inbound and force a turnover. That's why he did that. Well, and also like just from like the players on the floor too. I mean, you're not knowing, like Terry Rozier didn't even know who he had beforehand. But like when you see Cade Cunningham as the inbounder with under 2 seconds to go, you have to know that it's going to be something at the basket as the primary option. Like, because otherwise he would be out on the floor trying to take a shot. So you have to know that like they're going to try something really cute to get something right at the rim. What do you make of Tyler Hero and what he's doing so far this year?
Right? That's been amazing to watch. I think he's changed his shot mix to take more threes and fewer long twos, and that's been helpful. He's just been making the shots too, though. I mean, my goodness. Just really been on a giant heater. What was lost in that Detroit game was how good he was to nearly lead them to a miraculous comeback. Made 3 threes in the final 90 seconds of regulation. Made a very tough leaner to tie the game in overtime. Finished with 40 points. So, and he's kind of been the offense with Bam's off to a slow start. Jimmy Butler's played in 8 games.
Yeah,
He's
I
been
thought it was notable
okay.
that even with Jimmy out, they really have not run that much through Bam.
Yes. So, and I had wondered if we'd see more offensively from Bam this year, like with him extending his game to the 3-point line. And that hasn't really been a thing so far. Defensively, they've been pretty blah. One positive, I guess you would say, is looks like they might get something from second round pick Pele Larson.
Yeah, and I do think Ware could figure at some point. Like he's pretty big out there. Like when you see him, you're just like, oh wow, this guy is actually like, a crazy large human, and he can shoot the ball. Like I think they can make something out of him. I don't know maybe if it's going to be this year.
Yeah, I've been
Necessarily.
surprised that Thomas Bryant has been playing ahead of him based on how good Ware looked in Summer League.
Well, and also based on the fact that it's Thomas Bryant. Going back to Hero, yeah, he has changed his shot mix up to taking 56% of his shots from three. Previous career high was 48% there. But the other thing you look at too is he's been taking 15% of his shots from. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I misspoke. Almost 25% of his shots have been twos outside of 10 feet, and that's down to 6%
Yeah.
this year. So he won't continue shooting 48% from downtown, but he was 40% last year. I think high 30s, maybe even low 40s is realistic for him. I mean, the one thing he still is going to never do, basically, is, well, I should say he's gotten a little bit better at getting to the foul line, but so, 67% true shooting, no, but could he be in the 60% range? Perhaps. It's just then still he has a lot of defensive problems. Like teams still go after him late in games. And I overall think that this team's defense is just like they've kind of have this inflection point when Jimmy comes back. Like, are they going to play Haywood Highsmith with Jimmy and go for defense? But then you still have Hero and Rozier that's pretty small on the perimeter. They're trying to like force so many more turnovers now. But I'm not sure how, like, is that really going to make you an elite defense, particularly when it matters? So I'm still not, incredibly enthused by them. And even with Hero going off, they're not an amazing offense either. So they've kind of sacrificed defense for offense so far with Rozier and Hero having such large roles, but it doesn't really seem to have fixed everything. They can't get a rebound either. Maybe Kevin Love can help with that, but he won't help with the rim protection. So it's a lot of one-way guys on this team right now.
Yeah, and in the non-Bam minutes, they're not rebounding at all.
Yeah. Okay, next team is
Philadelphia. Let me ask a positive story about the Sixers. Can Jared McCain win Rookie of the Year?
Who are the other contenders right now?
I'm struggling to come up with one. Jalen Wells.
I mean Zach Edey, obviously.
I guess. I mean,
This is why I was never buying the Edey Rookie of the Year hype, because I just knew that someone we couldn't foresee would come through and eclipse him.
Yeah. So I'd say the one positive from the start of the year is that Jared McCain looks like a real player.
Unfortunately, he's nearly a complete overlap in his offensive and defensive role with Tyrese Maxey.
Yes. So that's going to be a little interesting when Maxey comes back, what that means for McCain's role. Maybe that pushes him back to the bench. But just disappointing all around, right? Like we've gotten a couple games we got the one game from Embiid. He didn't really do much. Paul George has played 5 games now. He's been fine, but hasn't exactly, sent a lightning bolt through the team. A lot of these veterans have played pretty badly so far that they were counting on. Eric Gordon kind of out of the rotation already. Kelly Oubre hasn't been able to get going. Caleb Martin can't shoot. So it's been a struggle.
What's your concern level about them right now?
I'm pretty concerned. Yeah, I mean, a healthy Embiid fixes a lot of ills, but how many games is he even going to play?
Yeah, and we'll see how healthy he's actually able to be as far as I mean, if like this was kind of my thought on their overall regular season, is that I thought that their number in the low 50s was too high, because that was I think it went up to like either 53 or 54 and a half. And that seemed way too high to me, because that was just assuming that Joel would be healthy and playing at an MVP level. Like, there's just no way they were going to hit that number without that.
Yeah.
And, obviously with this start, that type of a number is totally out the window. But yeah, I mean, it all comes back to Joel in the end. Like, yeah, Andre Drummond has really struggled, and like some of these support guys really struggled. Maybe a lot of them look better with Joel playing at an MVP level. But if Joel is just going to play like an all-star, and it does take him a while to get into rhythm, so I'm not like writing him off just based on that first game that he played. But I also saw absolutely nothing to be encouraged about, other than the fact that he's lost some weight in that first game. And he's talking about like trusting his knee, and I think particularly when you have that brace on, like, you just feel it all the time. Like, he just, like, I think he was 2 for 11, and I think 4 of his misses were just complete bullshit give up attempts to draw fouls on like layups. So I mean, he did get to the foul line for 8 attempts, but I just really was not a fan of what I saw from him. Like, if you can't score against this Knicks defense, like, that's not very encouraging.
Red flag. Yeah. Again, it was his first game, so we'll see. But this is they're already in a position where they're having to make up ground now. Even in the lowly East, they're falling behind, and they still have more games like this where they're going to be playing without guys. And it's going to be, I mean, when is the first game where they're going to have Maxey and George and Embiid all on the floor together?
Yeah, maybe like 2 weeks from now, at best.
Exactly.
Well, so what would their record have to be for you to say they can't make the playoffs?
Well, sadly, this is the East, so I don't even know what the number is. Because they could. There's almost no position from which you couldn't rally to 10th in the East, right?
Yeah, I guess that's right, huh?
So
yeah, I mean, really, as long as they could get to 30, as long as 38 wins is still in sight, and it might not even take that.
Yeah, that's like the 4 seed right there, isn't it?
Yeah, by the way, all those projections that have like the 6th seed in the East with 39 wins, that's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen, not with SAG for flag on the horizon.
Yeah.
And it's not even that those teams will get so much better. It's just that certain teams are just going to get worse.
Yeah, it's what happens every year. We always end up with a bulge of teams just over 41 wins. So somehow, some way, we'll end up there again.
This is something actually I should look at some point, is just if you took over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, let's say you just took only records after the All-Star break, or maybe you could even say only March and April records, and then extrapolated those out to a full season, like what would the distribution look like? I'm guessing you would have like 8 60-win teams and like 8 14-win teams.
70 loss teams. Yeah, totally.
That's probably an overstatement, but maybe not that much of one. That's a good Daily Dunks topic for Dan. Okay, next team is.
Should we talk about the Chicago Bulls? Fresh off a riveting win in MSG last night. Very exciting game. They were up by 22. The Knicks came back. The Bulls held them off in the end. A lot of good shot making both ways.
Kobe White validated having this hairstyle for the last 5 years just with that one shot, like that one time a game. I mean, I think that technically is a foul. But the hair is part of the body.
Hair. That's like hand part of the ball, right?
Yeah. The hair is part of the head.
For those who didn't see it, Josh Hart kind of rear contested a 3-point shot and hit Kobe White's hair. I'm not sure he actually hit his head, but it was enough for a foul to be called.
But how can the official make that determination? Like, you have to have an objective standard, John, of whether it contacted part of his body. So
this is why I cannot draw 3-shot fouls.
I always thought it was because no one was bothering to contest, but that's
yeah. So interesting times for the Bulls. They got a good game from Zach LaVine. You wonder if he can restore some trade value here. He's at 66% true shooting on the season.
yeah. His demise was like way. I was saying this before the season too,
Yeah.
for the record, like that people were just way too low on what he was. Now, it is that worth the 3 remaining years on his 30% max contract? No, it's not. He's not. I don't think he would have positive trade value. But the idea that he would just like not be an effective player anymore and not like a good scorer, I never bought that. I felt that he was going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he could be the third best player on a good team, basically. So you just have to decide if that's worth that price on that contract and then some of the health issues that might go along with that.
Well, so let me ask you about this. The Bulls, though, like they're, I mean, if they didn't have this top 10 protected pick, they would probably be a pick for me to make the play-in.
They are seemingly trending that way. I mean, they're not very good on defense, but Vooch has been much better on offense this year.
Yeah, that's like he's had one of the most surprising. He's shooting 65% from 2 and 45% from 3 right now.
Yeah, and he's taken those threes too, which he was kind of shy with the last couple years. So it's been a really good start for him. They're still kind of.
Aren't they like third in 3-point volume right now too, something like that?
Are they that high? I think you might be right.
And they are up there.
They are. Yeah, they are sixth in 3-point rate. They are fastest pace in the league.
Yeah.
So they're at least doing that. I mean, they haven't been super efficient actually. Some of their perimeter guys, I think, have been a little disappointing. They're not getting much from Patrick Williams. Josh Giddey has been okay.
Dude, I should just watch every Bulls game because like a couple. I mean, I've watched a couple full ones, but I watched the second half of the Milwaukee game, and then that Knicks game, and he was like actually aggressive, like getting tip dunks in transition, and like just actually like using his athleticism. But he does that for 3 quarters a week.
Yeah, and then they actually didn't even close the game with him. They closed the game with Dosunmu instead of Giddey.
And they also did not close it with Josh Giddey. Yeah, I mean that's like that he's kind of been the one issue there. I mean did you care to guess what Josh Giddey is shooting at the rim right now?
Well, how many times has he actually shot at the rim? As opposed to like the little pull-up floater thing. I couldn't even hazard a guess.
48%. Yeah.
Yeah, not great.
And let's just for kicks here, let's take a look at our contested finishing for him at the rim. Yes, Josh Giddey contested finishing at the rim, 39%.
Nice.
At 6'8". Yeah, so that's having a big point guard. Maybe he's turning into Ben Simmons. It's just every big Aussie point guard. But although he's actually the one thing he's been doing is actually hitting his threes. Oh, by the way, to put a pin in something we talked about earlier that I never got back to.
Okay.
LaMelo, yeah, pretty high up in terms of playmaking usage, 17%. So that's not like an amazingly high, but like LeBron is 20%, James Harden is also 17%, Trae Young I think is the leader right now with 23%. So I think a lot of it is just that his teammates are not making shots off of his passes at the moment. Okay, so yeah, that's probably all we have time for on the Bulls. So like a couple of weeks ago, I was saying, oh man, I really blew it. I should have picked Alex Sarr for Rookie of the Year. And then he basically hasn't made a shot since that point. Although I think he has impressed some on defense.
Yeah, Offensively, I just, it's going to be a little bit of a journey for him because he's like a skill big, but his level isn't high enough yet where you can use him that way in an NBA game and have it be effective.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And they're still running him out there. I was a little surprised they started him at center, but I guess they just want to bring Valanciunas off the bench, and they're going to let Sarr take his lumps. He is the one thing I'll give him credit for is he is leading the league, at least among guys who are playing any kind of minutes, in percentage of opponent shots at the rim that he contests, which is 44%. He's not necessarily forcing a ton of misses yet, and opponents are hitting a lot of those shots. So, but he does have like good rim protection instincts, and he has good mobility. But I'm also a little concerned that he's shooting 17% from three at this point.
Yeah, I just watching him in the whole pre-draft process, I never totally trusted his three ball. I think, if he can get to making 1 and 3 and then doing enough on the perimeter, kind of off the elbows, handling the ball, that's really what you're hoping for with him. So, but defensively is where his potential is. Offensively, he's probably a secondary player.
Yeah, you would have to think so. But he's had these flashes. It's exactly what you said. He has these flashes, and then you look down a month into the season, the stat sheet is 42% true shooting for a center. That is so damaging because normally your center, like the positional average is like 62%. Yeah. And yeah, he's taken a few more threes, but he's also not exactly like dominating around the rim on the offensive end either. Bilal Coulibaly, so we probably don't have time for him right now in this, but he's certainly someone that I am excited to discuss at a future time.
Yes, he's making a very nice leap in his second season. And
good stat on him. He has not missed a shot at the rim yet.
Wow.
This season.
Okay. Well, coming into that Atlanta defense on Friday night, that'll be a challenge for that.
Who's up next for you?
Up next for me is, I believe, the Indiana Pacers, right? Remember when these guys would like fast break and shit?
Yeah, the Knicks remember, but other than that, I don't think anyone else does.
17th in pace, 14th in offense. Tyrese Halliburton has been dealing with what we suspect are back issues. Has been a very ordinary player to start the season, and with that, it's just taken all their pace away. They've been fortunate that Benedict Mathurin is breaking out and has given them scoring, but this just doesn't feel like last year's team right now, even though it has basically the same players.
Yeah, Tyrese did have a big game against the Knicks over the weekend. Again, that's against the Knicks. The thing that worries you is like Pascal Siakam and Mathurin have both been really good. So Andrew Nembhard struggled a lot, and now he's out for a little bit with this knee soreness. That seems like kind of more of a chronic thing, so maybe that's the explanation for why he was struggling so much. And maybe that like Jarris Walker is starting to play a little bit. Aaron Nesmith is out until December. I think that's another problem. Like their perimeter defense is not going to be very good right now either. And Nesmith was someone who at least would like take open threes when it was available. Like Ben Mathurin, as good as he's been statistically, and he's getting to the foul line at a ridiculous rate. Like he's been making his threes, but he also just like kind of grinds the wheels to a halt when he catches the ball. And like doesn't make quick decisions, which is, of course, is like what made them so good. There's still like, could there still be something here, or is it like time to just conclude that they're gonna win 42.5 games this season?
I'm still optimistic that I just think the peak version of Halliburton just juices the offense so much in terms of the easy hit aheads, the threes, just the entire tempo. So I'm still optimistic because of that. But I mean, they've had some injuries already. They haven't gotten a lot from Miles Turner. Like, there's definitely some questions here.
Yeah, I am concerned that Turner, I mean, so much of the defense is built around him, and he just hasn't been, you just haven't felt him on the defensive end so far this season. But yeah, I mean, I guess like you're always going to hold out hope that that version of Halliburton could come back. And you even saw it in like a few playoff games. I mean, he's just so ridiculously inconsistent in terms of his aggression level. And maybe it's just a question, like he's too young to be one of these guys where it's like he feels good physically once every 2 weeks, and otherwise he just has to kind of take a step back. But like, because he plays like so freely and with such joy when he really has it working, but then you so rarely see that from him. I mean, you can only conclude that it's just his physical condition kind of waxing and waning.
Right, and you hope whatever's bugging him with the hamstring in the back or whatever, that it's stuff that's going to go away at some point and not just stay with him all year like it did basically in the second half of last year.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, you always hold out hope with that, but I mean, I think your prior probably has to be that he's just, he's going to be like a, very lower end all-star type of player and not, one of the top 5 offensive forces in the league. And this team as much kind of like as many secondary offensive options as they have, like they're built for him to be the engine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, for him to even be a secondary all-star, I think would be a big upgrade on what they've gotten so far.
No, that's true. I mean, he was one of the most efficient guards that we'd seen during his heyday last year. And now, he's been true shooting of 6 points below the league average. Not very good. All right. My next team is the New York Knickerbockers. And what I want to ask you, John, is the theory of this team just broken? For as much talent as they have, is it just not going to fit together? Is there no way for them to get to being a championship contender with this particular group?
I think it's a question worth asking. Did they overrate how talented this starting 5 is as a unit?
Yeah, because the starting 5, I haven't looked at it recently, but like they had like a negative net rating with this starting 5. I mean, that's not even getting into the depth. Like if their starting 5 was just killing people and like, okay, like Nikola Jokic, like Jalen Brunson, when he's off the floor, they're like 20 points per 100 worse, and that's why they're 5-5. I would feel so much better about it. But this just this is a starting 5 that people thought was going to be dominant.
Yeah. Exactly, and especially at the offensive end, and like they're pretty good, but there's 2 guys that I think you're not that worried about with OG and Hart, shooting the ball.
I mean, are you that worried about Bridges at this point either?
He's been really disappointing so far. Towns has actually delivered more than any of the other guys.
I mean, yes.
But he's given them the thing they were looking for, right? But it hasn't really translated to massive success as a unit. And then defensively, even though they're kind of strong up the middle, They haven't been good enough at the 1 and the 5. They're only 19th overall. So, they'll probably play better than this at some point. They're still getting used to each other and whatnot, but it just doesn't feel like a juggernaut, right?
Yeah, the Knicks starting lineup has played more possessions than any other lineup. They've played 66 more possessions than any other lineup, and they've been very good on offense, 120.7. And like they still actually get to the offensive glass some. One thing where I actually think they could get a lot better would be turning it over less with some of these groups. Like Towns is a turnover guy, but Brunson isn't. Hart is a turnover guy, some of these headlong rushes. But they should be able to be above average in not turning it over. But then the defense is apparently there's a 0th percentile.
No.
124 defensive rating allowed. Now, I mean, the one thing, like, they are defensive rebounding. They can't force it. That was actually one thing you would hope that maybe with OG and Bridges and Hart, that they could like turn teams over a little bit more with that group. Like, that hasn't been happening. Shockingly, a team with Karl Anthony Towns at center fouls a fair amount. So, I mean, I think they're not going to continue to be like this incredibly awful. Opponents are shooting really well from 40%, really well on mid-range jumpers, but I mean, opponents are going to continue to destroy them at the rim. And so, yeah, I mean, and also like Mikal Bridges hasn't been what they traded for defensively either. That's the other problem to me.
Yeah, for them to give up all that and have Bridges be just kind of a guy, I think has been a much bigger fail than the Towns trade.
Like, there was a moment as they were going on, I can't remember what the run was, like 18-0 or something, to get back into that game against the Bulls that they lost, where, all right, you started to actually feel Bridges. Towns was getting off. Like, they were preventing teams from getting to the rim, and you're like, okay, like this is actually some of the best defense they played this season, but of course they ended up actually losing that game in the end and couldn't get stops down the end. Brunson has only kind of been okay so far too. Like, he's hurt now.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably another part of the theory of this group was that Jalen Brunson would
Towns
play.
would open the floor, and then Brunson would be able to run wild, right? And it just hasn't worked like that.
No, he hasn't been at the level he was last year, or the level he was at in the playoffs before he got hurt last year. And I think it could be a season where he's kind of just dealing with something nagging all the time. So yeah, I'm gonna say it. I think these guys just are not good enough. I don't think Bridges is good enough. We've seen basically since he got traded to Brooklyn, he has not performed the way they need it on the defensive end. Towns can't protect the rim. I think that's like now they're trying to like do a little something more on defense to like blitz and stuff like that. Like, same thing Chris Finch decided he had to do, but that certainly is not how Tom Thibodeau wants to play with his center. He wants to have some rim protection there. I mean, could Mitchell Robinson come back and just like push everyone else into other roles and then they become a lot better on defense? Like, I suppose, but I don't want to count on that either. They don't have much left to trade.
It doesn't sound like anyone else is counting on that with Mitchell. So that's what you have to price in also.
Okay, last team is.
So I have to talk about the Orlando Magic.
Oh, no, you have two more. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And I haven't done Toronto yet either. I skipped Toronto. Apologies.
Franz
and I got
Wagner,
Detroit too. Yeah.
A first-time All-Star.
Yeah, he fixed his jumper apparently in the offseason. And, my concerns about that max contract are looking to be quelled so far. Want to give it a little more time with the jump shot. What have you seen from him?
Well, he has been carrying a makeshift lineup to 7-6, which is third place in the East, right? And only 32.9 from three. So, but he's letting it rip. A pretty high volume from out there, and the Magic have weathered this storm of not having Banchero, and it seems like they're going on a West Coast trip here, so we'll see how that goes. But it seems like they're going to come out of this more or less okay. The defense is held up. They're still second in defense, which is what they were last year, which is enabled them to win some ugly games. And
yeah, they're as a team, they're shooting 29% from three, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, that's to be 7-6 with that. Now, you are concerned that could continue. Like Caldwell Pope is shooting 22% from downtown. Jalen, I hadn't looked at Wagner's stats for a little bit. He had shot it well, and then he had that. I think it was an illness that had him out for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he's able to do enough as a semi-leading man, Suggs increases playmaking. But yeah, I mean, I do wonder if like they're ever going to hit a three. That is concerning. It'd be nice if they could get Wendell Carter back. Yeah, I mean, they don't have. This is amazing, John. They don't have a single player other than Jet Howard who's shooting better than league average on threes.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, Gary Harris is a guy you would think might shoot for them at some point. He's really struggled so far. Tristan Da Silva, they drafted in part for his shooting, hasn't really been that guy yet. Cole Anthony has really struggled to the point that I think Anthony Black has taken a lot of his minutes. So it's been a battle, but the defense there has still been consistent. They've had Goga in the middle filling in. Jalen Suggs is still a massive pest on the perimeter. Black is really good on that end. So that's been what's carrying them. And credit to Jamal Mosley for getting a young team to defend at this level again.
Yeah, and I like his approach, which is like, yeah, we could try to see if we can get Cole Anthony going offensively, but like, how much better is that really going to make the offense? Let's just lean into the defense even more, and we're just going to turn you over. We're going to get every single defensive rebound, and that's going to provide us with such a floor. And the other thing too is that even with Paolo out and Wendell Carter out, like, they just have a lot of good players. Like, they don't have like amazing shooting or creators, but they do come at you with a full rotation of guys that deserve to be in a rotation. I mean, that's really powerful in today's NBA.
Yeah, and especially at the defensive end, there's just nobody with that kick me sign on them.
Okay, next team here is the Detroit Pistons. Do you agree with my pick for the Detroit Pistons to make the play-in?
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, that is some good red sauce on top of that Detroit style pizza right there.
Let's see. Coming into the season, I had Toronto finishing 10th, and I believe I had Detroit finishing 11th, and I had them finishing one game ahead of the Bulls so that the Bulls could keep their pick. So I mean, Detroit's definitely in that mix. There are some things to like there. They're shooting the ball better. They have more of a real rotation. You would think, I mean, they really probably should have beaten Milwaukee last night, right? Or Ron Holland misses those 2 free throws. Otherwise, they walk out of there with a win. And I liked Holland coming into the draft, and I think he's going to keep giving them more as the year goes on. Obviously, offensively, he's a little bit behind. But man,
So what is a greater chance? Detroit making the play-in or Ron Holland making a clutch free throw?
Oh man.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I got to actually watch the end of that one when we're done recording. But that was I did see the highlights of that one. He didn't.
I don't know, man. I still think Toronto, when they get Barnes back and they've gotten
aren't they too far
secondary guys.
Aren't they too far behind though, Toronto?
Are you ever too far behind in the East? Come on.
Like, Quickly is out again now.
Yeah, that hurts. That but I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe Toronto is just going to end up too far out. I mean, Toronto at least did did the first West trip already, took their lumps, went 0-5, so maybe they could get healthy with a couple home games here.
So the question with Detroit to me is whether they're 12th ranked defense. Sorry, such an impressive what?
Depressing race.
Yeah. Why did I think you said it? Impressive. Well, so this is the question about Detroit. They're 24th on offense. Cade, he is. When they are even remotely successful, he kind of gets the credit for it. I don't think he's had a few more moments to me, like getting by guys, creating separation than we've seen in the past. But the overall stats are pretty comparable to last year.
Yeah.
They tried to upgrade their shooting. That just hasn't really worked, other than Hardaway Jr., who's probably going to miss some time now. But it's their defense is 12th. In JB, we trust. So I guess the question is that sustainable? And I think that would be a pretty nice step forward for this group. But I mean, the other problem is Jaden Ivey's been a little bit better. Like, he's been a more aggressive shooting the ball. JB has a really good record of getting guards who didn't defend before to actually become passable defensively. Like, he's gotten a lot better there. But I mean, if you can have one of your two units be even average, that's play-in territory in the East.
Yes. So can they stay there? You know, is Jalen Duren progressing enough where he's like a real kind of rim protector?
I mean, but they also have Isaiah Stewart too, and I've liked that JB has been willing to sit Duren when Stewart has had Stewart. Actually, his rim protection numbers are really good. Again, like now that he's back at center, like he had flashed that a couple of years ago, and then he played all power forward so they could get more time for James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley at center the last 2 years. And like Stewart, I would like to actually see Stewart shoot more threes. Yeah. Now, like because he actually shot him semi-competently at the 4, and like if you unleash that at the 5, because he's not like a great around the rim center other than his offensive rebounding. But in any event, like he is a quality defender, so I think they can. You know, Tobias Harris isn't great, but he's at least a body there. Same thing with Fontecchio. Cade is okay. Now, did I love that they had to go to Malik Beasley to guard Tyler Hero in an isolation at the end of the game on Tuesday? That's they could use one more stopper there, but I think they could be competent defensively. Why not?
Yeah, but I think it's probably more like an 18th competent than a 12th. So I don't know. I'm still probably shaky on them getting to the play-in, but it's at least the thing we're talking about. That's good news for the Pistons right there.
Okay, so now you have, who do you have left? Brooklyn,
yes. Is Jordi Fernandez going to screw this whole thing up? Win too many games? Deny them Cooper Flag?
Well, I think Sean Marks has it at his disposal to right any wrongs that Jordi Fernandez may
Jordy, everyone is on a minutes restriction tonight except for Jackie Quee.
Do you know anything about him, by the way? Is he just on the team because of Joe Tsai, or is he actually like deserve to be there?
I think it is more the former than the latter, but he's like legitimate enough that it's not totally ridiculous.
Oh! I wanted to ask you this. What do you think of the Bronny James is only gonna play home games in the G League thing?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Okay, all right.
You can't fly him to Santa Cruz on Friday, right? Like, come on. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, is it like it's gonna be too hard for him to travel on a commercial plane and like be in the airport and stuff? Is that like part of the issue? That his celebrity is at like that type of a level?
You know,
I know you encountered this with Wade Baldwin quite a bit back in the day. So when you send him down to the G League,
I would be pretty surprised. I mean, you do have security people who travel with the team, and yeah, I'd be pretty surprised if like that was the whole limitation. I don't know.
It's just that either he or LeBron like doesn't want to do it. That it's just
that's what it sounds like. Yeah, or that they want to keep him with the team and then just send him down really quickly for South Bay games and bring him back up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that is maybe part of it is just that. Part of drafting him is just so LeBron will be happy. I mean, Windhorst made this point, which is a good one, that like spending the 55th pick to get three more points a game out of LeBron or something is like that's actually a great use of the 55th pick. I mean, I do think there's a point at which it can kind of devolve into being a little bit of a farce, and you do have to have like some accountability and some feeling on a team. Like, yeah, sure, superstars are always going to get privileges in the NBA, although I do think that when superstars don't abuse those privileges, it does really help the team. If you have, a Tim Duncan or a Steph Curry type who is going to be a little bit more judicious about the use of that power than, say, maybe a LeBron, like it does help the team dynamic. But yeah, when you get a whole other player in there who is also getting special rules, I mean, realistically, because of his father, like that's that's when it goes too far. Like, I didn't think he's like not an NBA player or anything. Like, the Lakers manipulating it so like no one else could draft him and stuff like that kind of raised my hackles a little bit. But yeah, this is like, it's not really gonna matter. But I also was like, it's just as someone who like at least at a lower level was like part of a team, and I obviously you hear people talk about teams and cultures all the time. I do think there is a somewhat corrosive effect to, I mean, even just on the G League team, right? To just not respect the culture of the G League team, where it's like, yeah, we can't, this number 55 overall pick is like going to just waltz in here and only play in home games. Like, it's not good for the culture even of the G League team.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely a weird dynamic on G League teams in general too, with the players who are playing all the games versus the players who kind of who are roster players who kind of roll in and roll
but it's
back
one
out.
thing if the guy's like the 20th pick and like he gets some rotation minutes and it's like, okay, he's out of the rotation for a little bit, he comes in and he's gonna play 3 games and then we'll send him back, if that's the strategy. But that's not what this is like. I mean, if he needs to be playing in the G League.
If you're pick 55, the expectation is you'll be playing in the G League. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what makes it a little more odd.
Yeah, like I think this is starting to add up. Okay, sorry for that aside.
No,
that concludes our section on the Brooklyn Nets. Let's move on.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so I mean, let's pretend, just for fun here, that they actually were going to continue trying for at least some length of time. They're 5-7. They're in most games except this game against the Celtics recently. Although they have actually been blown. Like, they started pretty well. They've been blown out in 2 of their last 4 and like barely beat New Orleans and Memphis. They're 4-4. They haven't been great lately. But like, is there anything sustainable about what they're doing just if they continued to try?
I think they have enough kind of average-ish players that they could sustain at a level of competitiveness where they're like 20th on each end.
Yeah, because the big thing was that they were just absolutely bombing threes early on, and they are still actually 5th in three-point attempt rate. And that's the biggest thing that you point to. Like, the defense is starting to fall apart, which is actually one of the things you would have thought they'd be better at.
Yeah. I mean, they're still ramping up Claxton's minutes, so he should help with that.
Yeah, I mean, and also, like, they kind of need to start Ben Simmons at center because there's just nowhere else he can play. This idea that he was going to start at point guard and Dennis Schroeder's going to come off the bench. I mean, Dennis Schroeder has been really good, so that's they've got rid of that. But yeah, there are certain guys who maybe are a little bit above their head from 3. Maybe it's only Schroeder, honestly. I could see Cam Thomas, his efficiency dropping a little bit. He's right around league average, which they certainly need someone to soak up those minutes. He's basically the only guy on this team who gets to the foul line at all. I mean, I think they could play like a 29-33 win team the rest of the way if they wanted to.
Yeah. So 6th seed in the East.
Never gets old.
No, I'm gonna keep hammering this.
What do you think of Grady Dick's season so far in Toronto?
Yeah, definitely one of the most improved players in the league.
I still got to figure out how the hell he got 16 free throw attempts the other night. I saw that in the box score. I need to watch those at some point. The Wi-Fi on the plane was insufficient for me to watch all the times Grady Dick got fouled yesterday.
I mean, good shooter with his feet set, but he's doing more off the dribble. He's getting to his jumper off the dribble, getting even to the rim sometimes. So I think that's probably one of the most encouraging things about Toronto's season is that he was really the question mark as the 5th starter, and now he's been basically one of their best players. And then Ochai Agbaji, who's another kind of question mark guy, he's been really good too.
Yeah, that's actually big that he remembered how to shoot over this offseason because he just had really struggled there. I mean, in Toronto, just basically all last season, he was someone that the Jazz were pretty high on. They essentially punted on him. They ended up getting the pick that became Isaiah Collier out of that deal. I think Kelly Olynyk is someone who could help them if he ever comes back from these back issues. Obviously Barnes is good. Like RJ Barrett is wilted under this huge load that he's been under. He's shown some good distribution, but hasn't really been able to create particularly efficient offense for himself. And quickly, has only played 68 minutes so far. He's got this left elbow injury now. So, I mean, if you want to, like, maybe you are correct in the idea that if they could get Barnes and Quickly back, we thought actually Barnes, Quickly, and Barrett could be a good foundation, and that they just didn't have the supporting pieces. Abaji and Dick, if those guys are actually going to be rotation guys, you get Olynyk back. Like, maybe this is a team that
Brown hasn't played either.
No, oh man, yeah, that's he has just poured into those jeans. But yeah, it's really, I think, a group that, because of some of the development of these young guys, like even like Jonathan Mobo has been like semi okay as well, coming off the bench. So Chris Boucher has given them like halfway decent minutes at times. So I think if they could get the big three back, Jakob Poeltl has been really disappointing to me though, as a rim protector. Like he's not been what they traded for. So I mean, I agree with you that they would maybe be a team that could play at the level of a play-in team, even though they're 2-10. But they got to actually get these guys back.
Yeah. 33-49 is still on the table.
Well, okay, so they're 2-10 right now. What would they have to go the rest of the way to be 33-49? They would have to go 31-39.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could do that. Yeah. Yes. All right. Yeah. Let's end it. Let's end this one on an optimistic note.
Right.
All right. Did we do all the teams, by the way? Did I forget anybody?
We did them all. Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's we'll put a little check mark next to the old Toronto Raptors and pack it in for this week. I want to remind you of course, that you can subscribe to Dunked on Prime. Link to that is in the show notes. And you can listen to every Hollinger and Duncan. We do about half of these on the public feed. And, of course, every pod with me and Danny, you get Dan Feldman's Daily Dunks as well. Maybe he'll even look into the distribution of records after the All-Star break question for us. And we can give you that answer next week. And, we'll talk to y'all hopefully every day on Dunked on Prime.